What would you do if a man in uniform raised his hand against you not because you threatened him, but simply because you didn't shrink? What if your dignity was treated like a disruption? Now imagine, you're thousands of feet in the air, no escape, no witnesses brave enough to speak, except for the ones who finally decided to open their eyes. This is not just a story about a slap on a plane. It's a story about power, about silence, about the moment one woman calm, composed, and heartbreakingly human refuses to disappear. But here's the twist. What if the woman they tried to humiliate was the chief of police? And what happens next, when the very system that tried to erase her identity is forced to reckon with it? You're about to witness a journey that starts at 30,000 feet, but lands deep in the soul of a nation. If stories of quiet courage, truth, and justice matter to you, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's step on board Flight 384 and watch what happens when truth refuses to be grounded. The terminal at Portland International buzzed with the quiet rhythm of early morning travel. Lena Cole stood just outside the TSA checkpoint, her hand lightly resting on the handle of a small black carry-on. She took a slow breath. It was 5:04 a.m. It had been a long time since she'd traveled without a uniform. No crisp badge, no department-issued bag, no one calling her chief. Just Lena, in her charcoal gray cardigan, soft cotton blouse, and a pair of well-worn jeans. Civilian Lena, quiet Lena. Invisible Lena F. only for a day. The overhead board flickered. Flight 384 to Atlanta. On time. She exhaled. Today, she wasn't a commanding presence. Today, she was just another passenger flying to a national public safety summit, a gathering she'd helped organize for over a decade. But this year, she'd deliberately chosen to arrive as herself. Not as the speaker, not as the name on the program, just as a woman heading to a meeting. One day, she thought. One day without the badge. Her phone buzzed with a gate update, boarding at gate 15B. She smiled faintly. She always liked the even-numbered gates, easy to remember. As she moved through the terminal, her mind drifted to her niece, Ava, who had insisted she bring back something sparkly and snow-globy. The snow globe Lena picked out the night before clinked softly in her carry-on. She'd wrapped it twice in scarves just to be sure. She couldn't bear the idea of it breaking. A voice called over the loudspeaker first-class passengers for Flight 384 to Atlanta. Please proceed to Gate 15B for pre-boarding in 20 minutes. Lena approached the escalator down to the gates, swiping past rows of hurried travelers, a few in suits, some in sweatpants, many sipping oversized coffee cups. She carried herself with a calm assurance, not boastful, but unmistakably grounded. Then it started. It was subtle, the way a few people glanced at her, then at the black first-class tag on her carry-on. The woman ahead of her in the priority lane gave a brief look, then looked again. Longer this time. Lena said nothing. Instead, she stepped aside and gave a gentle smile to the young family behind her, two toddlers tugging at their dad's backpack. Their mom clearly frazzled. The ticketing agent barely concealed her skepticism as Lena handed over her boarding pass. "Oh," the woman said, blinking. "You're in. First class." Lena nodded politely. "Yes." 2A. A moment passed. The agent scanned the pass again, slower this time, and looked down at the screen like it might correct itself. No apology. Just a faintly surprised, Boarding will begin shortly." Lena stepped away. She had long ago stopped reacting to the surprise, the lifted eyebrows, the suspicious glances, the quiet assumption that someone like her didn't belong where she had every right to be, and still it always stung. At gate 15B, a few other first-class passengers had already begun to gather, mostly white, mostly male, suitcases with monograms, leather shoes freshly shined. One of them gave Lena a glance, then did the subtle double-take, the kind that said, "Are you sure you're not lost?" She didn't flinch. She'd spent 20 years not flinching. A young black girl sat nearby, maybe 8 or 9 years old, her pink backpack clutched tight to her chest. She watched Lena with wide eyes. Lena smiled gently, just once, and the girl returned it like it was a secret handshake. That one smile did something no official badge ever had, reminded her why she'd chosen this line of work in the first place. Not to command fear, but to create space, to protect dignity, to show what's possible. She checked her phone again, boarding in 8 minutes. Then a voice, sharp and clipped, cut through the air. Ma'am, are you waiting for coach boarding?" Lena turned. A gate agent, Julie, according to her name tag, was pointing toward the economy line. "No," Lena said, her voice warm but firm. "I'm in first." 2A. Julie paused. Her eyes lingered too long on Lena's face, then down to the carry-on, then back up again. "Oh," she said, that word again. Lena took another breath. Inside her, thoughts spun in quiet circles. Maybe they're just tired. Maybe it's early. Don't make it about you. "Cole." But another voice answered back. Or maybe they've seen someone who looks like you, standing where they think you don't belong and they're trying to correct it. How many times do you give benefit of the doubt before it becomes willful blindness? Still, she smiled. Still, she waited. Because Lena Cole had learned sometimes the most radical thing a black woman can do is simply exist in peace. The smell of overpriced cinnamon buns floated through the air as passengers milled about the terminal. Overhead, CNN murmured about a storm system sweeping across the East Coast. Lena Cole leaned against a column near Gate 15B, her phone in hand, scrolling absently through emails. Most were from her deputy back home. A few were from her niece Ava, who had sent a selfie at 3 a.m. with the caption, "Don't forget my globe. Lady Cop." Lena smiled. Just then, a voice interrupted her peace. It wasn't directed at her. At first, a small elderly woman stood to the side of the departure board, looking confused. Her carry-on bag sat precariously open. Her passport trembled in her hand. She muttered softly in Vietnamese. Other travelers weaved around her like she was invisible. Lena hesitated only a moment before walking over. "Ciao, back," Lena said, her voice soft. "Can, Gup, Kong, hi there, ma'am, need some help?" The woman's eyes widened in relief. Lena pointed at the gate number on her ticket and gently showed her the correct direction. She walked her halfway down the corridor before making sure the woman saw the gate sign. The older woman gave her a grateful squeeze on the hand before disappearing around the corner. Lena returned to Gate 15B and resumed her place. No badge, no fuss, just a kindness, quietly done. But not everyone had missed it. A flight attendant in a navy blue skirt suit had watched the exchange from across the boarding area. Her arms were folded too tightly. Her hair, not a strand out of place. Her face bore the kind of artificial calm only long-term corporate jobs could teach. Her name tag read Kaylee Vaughn, and her eyes were narrowed. As Lena passed, Kaylee turned to someone just behind her. "You see," that she said, a voice just loud enough. "They're always trying to look helpful, always performing." The person next to her, another crew member, maybe newer, just gave an awkward nod. Lena didn't react. She didn't turn around, but she heard it. She heard it the way you hear a car door slam in a quiet neighborhood, out of place, too loud, meant to make a point, 20 feet away. Captain Chase Warwick stood at the flight deck door, sipping coffee and scanning a clipboard. Mid-40s, silver streaks in his dark brown hair, stiff shoulders that seemed to carry more than just rank. He looked every bit the magazine image of trusted pilot except when he spoke. "Who's in first today?" he asked Kaylee as she joined him. "Mostly the usuals." She replied, her eyes flicking toward Lena, who had now taken a seat near the gate podium. Except for her. Kaylee didn't need to elaborate. Chase followed her gaze. Lena was tying her shoe, just a woman, but not to them. You'd think people like that would know better than try to blend in. Chase muttered, low enough not to carry at least, not to everyone. But Kaylee heard it, and she nodded, her lips curling with that strange smirk of agreement shared between people who think they've found mutual superiority. Chase smoothed out his uniform. "We have to protect the front of the cabin. Kaylee, that's the brand. The experience, the expectations. You understand." "I always do," she replied. From a nearby row, a young black teen with headphones on looked up and noticed the exchange. Something about their body language. Something about the way they kept glancing back at Lena. He lowered his headphones slightly. Meanwhile, Lena had returned to her own internal debate. She sat with legs crossed, one foot bouncing softly. Her phone sat face down in her lap. Was she imagining the looks, the tone, the whispers? Was it her job to always brush them off? How long do you stay quiet before your silence becomes consent? She stared straight ahead at the walkway leading to the jet bridge. "I'm not here as a symbol," she murmured under her breath. "I'm just here to fly." But even as she thought it, part of her wasn't sure it was ever that simple. The boarding screen lit up premium and first class. Boarding Flight 384 to ATL passengers began to gather. Lena stood and joined the line. As she did, Kaylee stepped to the front, smiling at a white man in a golf jacket, Mr. Carruthers. "So glad to have you again." He grinned back. Wouldn't fly anyone else. Kaylee took his boarding pass with both hands. "Seat 1A. Welcome aboard, sir." Then she looked at Lena. The smile faded. The enthusiasm withered. "Boarding pass," Kaylee said, flat and transactional. Lena handed it over. Kaylee scanned it, then paused. Again, and then again. "What's the issue?" Lena asked, calmly. Kaylee's tone sharpened. "Just verifying." The scanner beeped green. Lena smiled faintly. "That's me. Seat 2A. No welcome aboard, no enjoy your flight, no eye contact, just silence, and a look that said you're being allowed, not accepted." Lena walked down the jet bridge alone. The hum of the terminal gave way to something colder as Lena stepped into the TSA screening area. She moved with instinctive calm. No fumbling, no rush, shoes already off, laptop out, liquids placed neatly in a quart-sized bag. She'd done this more times than she could count, but she still felt it every time, the moment the air changed, the moment the person behind the scanner looked at her longer than necessary, The moment their eyes flicked from her face to her skin, to her bag, to her shoes, and back again. "Ma'am," said a blue-gloved hand. Lena turned. The transportation security officer's name tag read Rick Alden. He was in his late 30s, with a jaw that looked clenched even when he smiled. "We need to conduct a random check," he said. Lena glanced briefly at the three white businessmen who had walked through right before her. No checks, no stops. Behind her, an older white couple chatted with a TSA officer about their cruise. No interruptions there either. "Of course," Lena said softly. She stepped aside. Rick began opening her carry-on. The contents were meticulously packed: 3 rolled outfits, 2 pairs of shoes, 1 toiletry bag. On top of it all, wrapped in a gray wool scarf, sat a snow globe with the Atlanta skyline and a tiny spinning Ferris wheel. He didn't handle it gently. The scarf slipped, the globe wobbled. Lena tensed, but said nothing. Then his voice rose. "What's this hard object?" He held the toiletry bag like it might detonate. Lena's response was calm, but precise. Toothbrush, moisturizer, lip balm, all TSA compliant. He didn't look at her, not directly. He opened it anyway. Items tumbled onto the inspection table like contraband. Her facial toner landed on the edge and nearly rolled off. She reached for it, gently. "Please don't touch anything during a search," Rick snapped. Her hand froze mid-air. She retracted it, slowly. "They want to provoke you," she reminded herself. "Not today." From across the checkpoint, a uniformed pilot lingered at the TSA crew entrance, Captain Chase Warwick. He wasn't watching security procedures. He was watching her. And when he turned to a young flight attendant beside him and said, "Security knows who to look at," he didn't bother to whisper. The attendant gave an awkward laugh. Not agreement, just survival. Rick finished the search, slowly, deliberately. He found nothing. Of course, not a crumb out of place, just as it had always been. "You're clear," he muttered, avoiding eye contact as he began to repack her things. Lena reached for the snow globe and wrapped it back in the scarf herself. She didn't thank him. She didn't smile. She just walked away with the grace of someone who had survived too many of these moments to count. But as she passed the TSA officer, her voice, low and steady, reached his ear. "I've trained officers like you. You don't have to see someone as a threat just because you've never seen them in first class." Rick stiffened. She didn't wait for a reply. She walked toward her gate. But something had changed. Captain Warwick had seen her face again. Now, he remembered her. Now, she was no longer just a disruption in his day. She was something else, something that rattled him. And Lena knew it, because men like Chase. They never liked not knowing where you came from, or what you knew. She could feel it, the tension curling around the corners of the morning like storm clouds. But she kept walking, not fast, not afraid, just steady. Gate 15B was quiet when Lena returned. Her things were once again packed with care. Her scarf held the snow globe tight against the side of her carry-on. She checked the time still 20 minutes before scheduled boarding. But the moment she approached the first-class lane, the atmosphere changed. The gate agent stood stiffly behind the podium. Her hair was pulled into a tight blonde bun. Her blazer pinched too sharply at the shoulders. The silver wings pinned to her lapel were polished to perfection. Her name tag read Julie Merritt. As Lena approached, Julie looked up. Her gaze paused for a half-second too long, eyes scanning Lena's cardigan, jeans, dark skin, and calm face. Then the glance shifted, slight flick of her chin toward someone nearby. Captain Warwick was standing to the left, pretending to review a folder of weather updates on his tablet. But he wasn't looking at the screen. He was watching Julie, watching her watch Lena. A signal passed between them too quick for most to notice, but not Lena. She'd spent 2 decades reading body language, micro-expressions, subtle nods, and covert glances. This wasn't random. This was choreography. "Coach boarding isn't for another 45 minutes, Julie said suddenly, her voice pitched just high enough for the other first-class passengers nearby to hear. Lena didn't flinch. She stepped up and placed her boarding pass gently on the counter. "I'm in 2A, she said evenly. Julie didn't respond. She stared down at the boarding pass like it had been printed in another language, turned it over, held it up to the light, typed something into the keyboard, waited, typed again, then looked up at Lena with a frown. "This seems off," she said. "Unusual." "Is there a problem with my ticket?" Lena asked. Her voice was calm, controlled. Her hands rested lightly on the edge of the counter. Julie didn't answer directly. Instead, she turned to her radio and said, "Michael, can you come up here? I have a situation." Lena blinked. A situation. From the corner of the boarding gate, Brian Kelso, the shift supervisor, appeared, mid-50s, puffy eyes. The weariness of too many long shifts settled into the slope of his shoulders. He took one look at Lena, then one at the terminal screen, then back at Julie. "What's the issue?" he asked, trying to keep it quiet. Julie gestured to the screen. "This passenger claims to have a first-class seat, but something's off. It doesn't look right." Brian leaned over and examined the monitor. Within 5 seconds, he shook his head. "It's valid. 2A. Purchased 3 weeks ago. Platinum member." He turned the screen for Julie to see, but Julie's mouth twisted. "Are you sure that doesn't seem... how would someone..." She stopped herself, but not fast enough. Brian's jaw tightened slightly. He glanced behind Lena to see several other passengers now looking their way. "Is everything all right?" one of them asked. A white woman in a navy trench coat. "We're just verifying something," Julie said, her tone falsely cheerful. Lena stood motionless, but her heart pounded. It wasn't the scrutiny, it was the memory. The way humiliation builds in layers sewn check at a time, one raised eyebrow at a time, one public questioning at a time, Captain Warwick stepped forward. "I can help," he said, too casually. Julie gestured to the boarding pass. "We were just trying to confirm this woman's this passenger," Lena corrected softly. Julie's lips thinned. Captain Warwick took the pass from Brian's hand without asking. "How exactly did you obtain this?" he asked. There it was, the assumption, the insinuation, that Lena didn't belong in the seat she had paid for, that her presence required explanation, that her first-class status was suspicious by default. "I bought it," Lena said, quietly, "with my money." Captain Warwick blinked. "We'll need to verify your payment method. Fraud is common." He emphasized the word, fraud. Lena exhaled. Around them, the line had paused. Other passengers lingered a few feet back, trying not to stare but very clearly listening. One young mother clutched her child's hand tighter. A man in a suit shifted uncomfortably. Lena looked at the captain directly. "It's interesting," she said, "that my seat gets flagged. but not the 5 passengers before me. All white, all unchecked. Brian cleared his throat. Captain, the ticket's verified, fully. Warwick didn't acknowledge him. He turned back to Lena. I'm responsible for flight security, he said, squaring his shoulders, and I want it verified again. Lena didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood, still, in the truth of what was happening. 10 minutes passed. 10 long minutes where no one spoke to her, where passengers were allowed to board around her, where her presence, her stillness became the center of attention. Julie tapped on the keyboard again, verified again. Finally, she looked up, annoyed. It's clear, she said flatly. Lena picked up her carry-on and began walking slowly toward the jet bridge, but she could feel it. Chase Warwick wasn't done, not even close. The jet bridge was silent, cold with recirculated air and tension. Lena walked it alone. No one said a word as she passed. Behind her, she heard the hum of conversation pick up again, voices murmuring about the delay, about whatever that was. A few eyes watched her disappear into the aircraft as if she'd just walked through fire. She had. She'd done it before. She was doing it again. Inside the plane, the first-class cabin was polished and pristine. Fresh linen on the headrests, menus tucked neatly in the side pockets, complimentary drinks already prepared for the passengers soon to board. She found seat 2A, placed her carry-on above her, and sat. Her scarf still wrapped around the snow globe in her bag. She settled in without making eye contact, without adjusting the seat, without unfolding the blanket. She just sat still and waited. The flight attendant assigned to first class approached. A young woman, early 30s, with a friendly face and visibly practiced smile. Her name tag read Monica Hale. Lena gave her a small nod. Monica blinked just once, and her smile softened. "Can I offer you something to drink before takeoff?" she asked quietly. Lena could feel the woman's awareness, the way Monica had noticed the tone outside the cabin, the tension, the hostility, the way she was trying, genuinely, to do something different. Lena nodded again. "Just water, please." "Coming right up," Monica said, with a glance toward the cockpit. Lena looked out the window. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, overlaid with runway lights and the slow crawl of baggage carts. She exhaled. The noise of her thoughts was louder than anything around her. Why didn't I just show my badge? It had crossed her mind a dozen times in that moment at the gate. The badge in her wallet. The one that said she'd led some of the most difficult investigations in her state. The one that opened doors sometimes, but she didn't, because that wasn't the point. She didn't want to be treated fairly because she was the chief of police. She wanted to be treated fairly because she was human. Her phone buzzed gently on airplane mode. A photo still glowed on the lock screen. Her and Ellis, years ago, standing in front of the academy on graduation day. Young, idealistic, unbroken, Ellis, her brother in all but blood, killed during a wellness check by officers trained under a different chief, a different era, a different silence. That was the moment Lena stopped believing change came quietly. That was the moment she became chief. But change still hadn't come easy, especially not at 30,000 feet. There was movement at the front of the cabin. Captain Chase Warwick. He entered the aisle, helmet tucked under one arm, eyes scanning the rows like a predator reasserting control of his domain. He saw her. He didn't smile. Instead, he nodded stiffly to the co-pilot and turned to enter the cockpit. But just before stepping inside, He glanced at Lena one more time, this time with something colder, something calculated, like a man setting the board before the first move in a game. Lena's fingers tensed slightly around her water cup. She sipped slowly, watched, waited. Boarding finished. The safety demonstration began. Monica moved through the motions, the seatbelt held up with robotic grace, the oxygen mask lowered like a prop. Lena leaned back. She closed her eyes, but her mind remained fully awake. He's going to do something, and I don't know what yet. The flight attendant, Monica, passed once more, gently adjusting a pillow on seat 2B, still empty for now. She whispered under her breath, "If you need anything, just tap the call button." It wasn't routine. It wasn't rehearsed. It was an offering. Lena opened her eyes and nodded, then whispered back, "Thank you." And then the doors closed. The aircraft pulled back. The cabin dimmed, and Lena Cole braced herself, not for turbulence, not for the flight, but for the next insult coming at 500 miles per hour. Because when men like Captain Chase feel control slipping, they don't just let go, they double down. The plane had reached cruising altitude. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft blue glow, casting delicate shadows across the first-class cabin. Trays clinked softly. Pages turned. Most passengers melted into routine, but not Lena, not Captain Warwick either. He hadn't made a single in-cabin announcement. No welcome speech, no casual "we're pleased to have you aboard." Just silence. That wasn't typical, and Monica noticed. She passed Lena again, offering the usual hot towel. Her fingers brushed Lena's palm for a split second longer than needed. It wasn't an accident. It was communication. Stay alert. Lena's eyes drifted to the cockpit door. It was closed, as expected, but the tension that hung over the cabin was thick. Even Monica's bright tone couldn't erase the thin thread of unease that lingered. Quiet as fog. In seat 2B, a new passenger had arrived shortly before takeoff, middle-aged, white, reading a hardcover book about economics. He hadn't acknowledged Lena, not even with a polite nod. She was invisible again, as always. Halfway through the flight, the shift began. Captain Warwick's voice finally came over the speaker, but it wasn't what Lena expected. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've just received notice of a security concern originating from our departure terminal. There's no cause for alarm, but we are cooperating with the FAA and Homeland Security to review any irregularities connected to boarding today." The cabin went still. Every word was carefully crafted, polished, neutral, but the message was clear: someone on this plane was under suspicion, and Lena knew who he meant. Monica approached quietly, kneeling beside Lena's seat as if helping with something small. "Are you okay?" she whispered under her breath. Lena nodded. "He's building a case. Against you. He wants me off this flight, or humiliated by the end of it." Monica swallowed. Her hands trembled slightly, even as she kept her professional composure. "I've never seen him like this," she whispered. "Not this calculated." Lena said nothing. Her jaw clenched. The man in 2B shifted. He glanced sideways at Lena's lap, saw nothing unusual, but his face said it all. He was wondering, is she the one? That's how it begins. Not with accusations, but with seeds of doubt. And men like Warwick knew how to plant them. Suddenly, Lena heard movement near the galley. The cockpit door opened. Warwick stepped out. He didn't look at her. He walked past her seat, pretending to inspect the cabin. A glance here, a nod there, and then, Without warning, he stopped next to her row. He turned. "Miss, may I speak with you for a moment in private?" The other passengers turned, just slightly. Monica looked up sharply. "Captain, is this necessary?" "It's not a request," he said firmly. Lena didn't flinch. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood slowly, with dignity, with strength, but inside, a storm. They walked to the small galley near the front of the plane. He closed the curtain behind them, and then, voice low, almost rehearsed, "I don't know who you think you are, but I run this flight. I don't think I'm anyone." Lena replied, "I'm a passenger, like anyone else. Don't play games." He sneered. "You bought that ticket under suspicious routing, a last-minute name change, and your ID doesn't match the records. That's a lie. Prove it." He stepped forward, too close, too certain, too full of himself to see the trap he was building. But Lena saw it, all of it. "You want me gone?" she asked quietly. "You want to make this into a report, a file, something that stains my name before I land in Atlanta?" Warwick smiled. He thought he had her, thought the isolation of the sky was his ally. "I know your type," he said. "Flash a card. Think you're above protocols." He leaned in. "But when we land, I'll be speaking to federal agents, and you'll explain yourself to them." Lena held his gaze. Her voice came like winter air. "I look forward to it." He scoffed, turned to leave. But then, in one final move, he brushed past her shoulder on the way out. Hard. Not a bump, not an accident, a statement, and a mistake. Because what he didn't know was who she really was. Lena stood still for a few seconds after he left. Her pulse drummed beneath her ribs, but her breath stayed even, her mind sharp. She reached into her carry-on bag and removed a slim, leather badge holder. She didn't open it yet, just held it in her hand. The time was coming, but it would be on her terms. The curtain parted. Lena stepped back into the cabin, her posture unbent, composed, her face unreadable. Passengers glanced up just briefly. She could feel it. The silent weight of suspicion now trailing her like a second shadow. The man in 2B, Gerald Knox, shifted again as she sat down. His book remained open, but he hadn't turned the page in 10 minutes. Lena didn't care anymore. She pulled the seatbelt back across her waist and clicked it into place. Monica passed by with a tray of coffee. Her eyes met Lena's for just a flicker of a second. She didn't ask what happened behind the curtain. She didn't need to. Instead, she whispered something under her breath as she poured cream into a cup. "He's scared of something." Lena blinked. Monica added, more quietly now, "Not of you, of being seen, of losing control." Lena nodded faintly. "He already has." Captain Warwick's voice boomed from the intercom again, not warm or conversational, but sharp-edged. "We've been notified of a delay upon arrival in Atlanta. Law enforcement has been instructed to meet the aircraft on the tarmac due to outstanding concerns." Passengers murmured now. One woman in row 3 muttered, "What kind of concerns?" a man in the back said. "I swear, it's always something with this airline." Lena didn't move. She reached for her bag and finally pulled out the leather badge case. She opened it slowly, quietly, not to wave it around, but to remind herself, to ground herself. Lena Cole, Chief of Police, Eastbridge, Oregon. A name and a title built not from power, but from service, from showing up when no one else would, from walking into rooms where she wasn't welcomed, and staying anyway. That badge wasn't armor, it was history, and it was time to write the next chapter of it 3,500 feet in the air. She pressed the call button. Monica appeared instantly. Lena handed her the badge open, facing up. Her voice was soft. "Please, take this to the captain, and let him know I'll be documenting the remainder of this flight in full." Monica's eyes widened. She took the badge gently, looked at it, then looked at Lena again with a flicker of awe, or relief. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Monica nodded. "I'll be back." 10 minutes passed. No word. Then 15. Finally, Monica returned, this time alone, her face carefully composed, but her hands clasped tightly together in front of her apron. He wouldn't accept it. Lena raised an eyebrow. He laughed. "Chief, he said if you were real, you'd have shown it earlier. He thinks this is a stunt." Lena exhaled slowly. "Did you record that Monica blinked?" "What?" "The conversation. No." I didn't think till Lena opened her carry-on and pulled out her phone, already in airplane mode. "Start documenting now," she said. "Timestamps, names, anything he says, anything he does." Monica nodded, her throat tightening. "Okay." Gerald Knox finally turned his head toward Lena. "You a cop?" Lena didn't answer right away. "Then I am." He grunted, clearly uncomfortable. "Don't look like one." "I'm used to that," she said calmly. He shifted again in his seat. "So what? This pilot's got it out for you." "Not just me," she replied, her eyes fixed ahead. "Women like me." Knox said nothing, but he didn't turn back to his book either. A sharp ding came over the cabin intercom. Warwick again. "This is your captain. Just reminding everyone that all federal guidelines must be followed at all times, including full cooperation with flight crew instructions. Any interference will be handled appropriately." His voice held a note of threat, and that was it. Lena stood. She walked slowly to the front of the cabin, past seat 1A, past Monica's wide eyes. She stopped at the cockpit door, knocked once, no answer, knocked again. Then, loudly, "Captain Warwick, this is Chief Lena Cole. You've made several threatening statements over the intercom. I'm ordering you to cease this harassment immediately, or I will invoke Federal Protective Protocol under 49 CFR 15404-2199. There was a pause. Then the door opened, just a crack, enough to reveal his smirk, enough for him to say, "You think anyone up here gives a damn what some diversity hire with a badge says?" Then he closed it again. Hard. The cabin heard that. The tone, the final word. It echoed across first class like a slap. Monica gasped softly. Even Gerald's face twisted in disbelief. Lena turned around. Slowly, she walked back to her seat with calm, deliberate steps, and the cabin was silent, except for her voice. "Start recording." It didn't take long for the murmurs to start. Passengers leaned into the aisles, whispering. One woman turned to her husband, voice low but clear. "Did you hear what he said to her?" That was out of line. Gerald Knox sat stiffly beside Lena. He didn't touch his book again. "Is this really happening?" he muttered. "He's targeting you." Lena didn't look at him. Her voice was calm. "Yes." Across the aisle, a young woman tapped the screen of her phone, her brow furrowed. "We can't even get a signal," she said, frustrated. "Why isn't the Wi-Fi working?" That's when Monica returned. She was pale. "They've cut the cabin feed," she whispered to Lena. "No internet. The captain authorized a full lock on outgoing signals. That's illegal. Lena said flatly. I know, Monica whispered. He's trying to isolate us. Lena's voice dropped. How many crew are on his side? Monica looked around quickly, then leaned in. None. Everyone's scared, but they're not loyal to him. They're just afraid. Are they recording? Monica nodded. We started a private feed, audio only. I've synced it to a hidden drive. It can't be overridden from the cockpit. Lena's lips lifted slightly. Good. Meanwhile, Warwick remained silent. No more announcements, no updates, just altitude and arrogance, hanging like a storm cloud over seat 1A. Lena sat with her badge case on her lap, now closed, but visible. Gerald cleared his throat. I misjudged you, he admitted. Thought you were just another entitled first-class flyer. I don't blame you, she said, still not looking at him. People like Warwick count on that, on silence, on assumptions. Gerald was quiet for a beat, then said, Well, I think people are waking up now. Lena finally looked at him. Then they need to speak up, too. In the rear galley, Monica whispered to another flight attendant, Jared, a young Latino man, tense and twitchy, but alert. She's a police chief, he asked in a hush. Yes, and Warwick's losing it. Jared blinked. He called in federal response. Right. That means Marshall's at the gate. Unless he changes course. What if he diverts Monica froze? She hadn't thought of that, but Lena had. Back in her seat, Lena opened the FAA app on her phone, tracking flight data in airplane mode. She watched the heading, still toward Atlanta for now, but a sudden turn wouldn't be noticed right away. She knew that trick. She'd seen it used before to isolate whistleblowers, force emergency landings under false pretenses, create chaos so real facts got buried in paperwork. She stared at the screen for a long time, then made her move. She stood and turned to face the first-class cabin. Excuse me, everyone, she said, loud enough to carry. Every head turned. I'm Chief Lena Cole, with the Eastbridge Police Department. I am not in uniform today, but I carry lawful authority under federal jurisdiction. The captain of this aircraft has made threats, denied a lawful ID check, and is currently suppressing Wi-Fi and cabin communication. For your safety and mine, I ask that you begin documenting everything you see and hear from this point forward. A few passengers stared. One began to film. A woman in 1C nodded solemnly and pulled out a notepad. Then the cabin speakers cracked. Warwick's voice, sharp, mocking, Chief Cole. This is your pilot. If you're finished grandstanding, please take your seat. You're disturbing my passengers. Lena didn't move, neither did the camera or the passengers. Monica appeared beside her. We're with you, she whispered. Then Jared joined her too, and the balance began to shift. Warwick must have realized it too, because the cockpit door slammed open again, and he marched out, face flushed, voice raised. That's enough gasps rippled down the rows. Sit down. He snapped at Lena, pointing. She didn't. He stepped forward, fury brimming over now. You want authority? Fine. Then with full force, he reached for her shoulder and slapped, open hand, across her right cheek. The sound cracked the silence in half. For one long second, no one moved. Then, get your hands off her. Someone shouted. A male passenger stood up, fists clenched. Monica gasped. Gerald Knox dropped his book and lunged toward Warwick, grabbing him by the arm. You put your hands on a woman. A police officer, Lena. Shock radiating across her face, remained still. Then, slowly, she reached down, opened her badge holder, and raised it high. "I am Chief Lena Cole," she said, voice full and unwavering. "You are under investigation for assault, flight interference, and misuse of federal protocols." Warwick froze. Reality caught up. Finally, Captain Warwick's arm froze midair, caught in the grip of Gerald Knox's surprisingly strong hand. "You're done," Gerald said, voice trembling not from fear, but fury. "You just assaulted a federal officer." Lena didn't flinch. Her face still held the sharp red print of the slap, but her eyes, those had gone cold, clear and devastating, back into the cockpit, she said, spacing every word. Warwick didn't move. Then Jared stepped up beside Gerald. Monica blocked the aisle from the galley end. 3 witnesses, 3 people between Warwick and control. "I said, return to the cockpit," Lena repeated. And this time, he listened. He turned without a word and slammed the door shut behind him. The cabin was silent for a long beat. Lena stood in the aisle. Her composure didn't crack, but her hand shook slightly as she lowered her badge. Gerald offered her a tissue. She took it, pressed it once to her cheek, then folded it neatly and placed it into an evidence bag from her purse. She sealed it, labeled it, time-stamped it. Jared watched, then let out a quiet breath. "You're really the chief, yes." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Okay, then what now?" Lena glanced toward the front of the plane. "He still has control of the aircraft," she said quietly. "But we have control of the cabin." "You think he'll try to land somewhere else?" Monica asked. "Possibly, or worse, he could create an in-air incident that puts us at risk." Gerald leaned forward. "Then we stop him." Lena looked at him. How he paused. "You said something earlier about how silence is what men like him count on. So let's get loud." Passengers began speaking up. Phones were raised again, even in airplane mode. They could still document. One young woman read Lena's title aloud into the mic of her recording app. A business traveler called out the flight number and timestamp. In row 5, a father with his daughter began typing a full play-by-play into his notes app. "We'll upload it when we land," he told her. "They're not going to bury this." Jared returned from the galley with the satellite phone, the old kind, still wired for emergencies. "We only use this if a captain becomes incapacitated," he said. "But it's here." Lena nodded. "Keep it close." Then the intercom blared again. "This is your captain. There will be a slight deviation from course due to weather turbulence reported near Atlanta." Lena's eyes narrowed. "That's a lie," she whispered. "Weather's clear." Gerald pulled out his tablet. "I downloaded the forecast before we took off." He showed her. "Clear skies, no diversions needed. He's trying to divert," Monica said. "Where to?" Jared asked. Lena stood and addressed the passengers again. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats, but do not turn off your phones. We are entering a critical phase. If you notice any unusual maneuvers or communication from the flight deck, I ask that you document everything immediately." She turned to Jared. "I need access to the intercom." He hesitated, then nodded. "Come with me." Inside the forward galley, Jared handed Lena the service mic. She took a breath. Then, "Clearly, this is Chief Lena Cole of the Eastbridge Police Department. Please remain calm. The pilot of this aircraft is under investigation for misconduct and flight interference. We are coordinating with federal authorities on the ground. No action is required from you except to observe, document, and stay seated. You are safe." Monica looked at her in awe. "You just took control of the narrative." "No," Lena said. "I gave it back to the people." Suddenly, the plane banked slightly left. Gerald checked his map. "We're veering southwest," Lena muttered. "Not Atlanta." Jared radioed the cockpit. "Captain, what is our new heading, Silence?" Lena crossed her arms. "Then we escalate." She picked up the emergency sat phone and dialed directly into the National Transportation Security Center. "Agent Ryder. This is Chief Lena Cole, Flight 384. We have a hostile captain attempting to divert the aircraft without clearance. Request an immediate FAA override and marshals at landing zone." There was a pause. Then Agent Ryder's voice crackled through. "We've been expecting your call. Chief Cole, sit tight. Help is waiting at Jackson Municipal Airport. He won't get far." She hung up. "He's trying to land us in Jackson," she told the crew. "He probably thinks he can spin the story, say I was the threat." Gerald laughed bitterly. "Of course." Lena nodded to Jared. "Keep watching the heading, and once we descend, don't let him lock that cabin." Monica looked confused. "Why Jackson smaller airport? Easier to control the narrative," Lena replied. "He has friends there, but so do I." For the rest of the flight, Lena didn't sit. She stood near the galley, quietly monitoring everything: the screens, the doors, the tension in the air. Not with fear, but readiness and resolve. The descent began. It was subtle at first, just the tilt of gravity shifting in people's seats. Bags jostled underfoot. Windows showed patchwork fields and highways crawling into view. Jackson Municipal Airport. Smaller, quieter, easier to manipulate if no one was watching. But this time, everyone was. Lena Cole stood near the front, arms crossed, voice steady. "He's going to try something before we land," she said to Monica and Jared. "He'll want to be first out the door. Maybe even speak to authorities before I can—" Gerald, still in seat 1B, raised his phone. "Want me to live stream the landing? I've got a proxy uploader I can activate as soon as we get 1 bar. Do it." Lena nodded. Inside the cockpit, Captain Warwick gripped the controls tighter than necessary. He wasn't speaking into the mic anymore. His co-pilot, Nick Donnelly, kept his head down, silent. Nick had seen the slap, heard the fallout. He knew what was coming and he wanted no part in it. "Say something," Warwick snapped. Nick replied coolly. "I'm logging everything." Warwick's jaw clenched. You're on cabin audio. Every word you say goes to the recorder now." Warwick fell silent. Outside, the runway loomed into view, flat and gray like judgment. "Prepare for landing," Jared said over the PA. "Cabin crew, take your stations." Monica strapped in near the front. Lena didn't sit. "Ma'am," Jared said hesitantly, "it's standard protocol. I'll kneel if I have to." Lena said, "But I will be the first one that door sees when it opens." He didn't argue. Gerald lifted his phone, camera already running. "You're going to go viral before we hit the gate," he said with a wry smile. Lena glanced at him, something like amusement flickering across her face. "I'm not interested in going viral," she said. "I'm interested in going home with my dignity intact." The wheels screeched. Touchdown. Passengers clutched armrests and gasped as the plane jostled. Brakes howled. The cabin tilted forward, then leveled. They were down. Warwick's voice crackled over the intercom, artificially calm. "Welcome to Jackson Municipal Airport. Please remain seated as we taxi to the gate. Local authorities will be boarding the plane for a brief security review." Lena's eyes narrowed. "Security review? My ass," she whispered. Monica turned toward her. "You think he tipped someone off? He's trying to flip the script." Lena replied, "He wants to paint me as a hostile threat, a belligerent passenger." The slap. "He'll say it was self-defense." Monica's lips thinned. "He's desperate." Lena nodded. "Desperate people are dangerous." The plane came to a full stop. There was a pause. Then the sound of a ramp attaching. Then footsteps. Lena stepped into the aisle. 2 uniformed airport security agents entered the cabin. Not federal marshals. Warwick had pulled strings. The taller of the two, Officer Trent, scanned the cabin with bored eyes. "We've received reports of an onboard disturbance," he announced. "We'll need the involved parties to come forward." Warwick exited the cockpit with forced calm. "That would be her," he said, pointing directly at Lena. "She's been disruptive, aggressive, and threatened flight operations." Murmurs rose again, but Lena didn't react. She reached into her coat and held up her ID. "Chief Lena Cole, Eastbridge Police Department." "This man." She pointed to Warwick, assaulted a law enforcement officer during transit, attempted to unlawfully suppress communications, and diverted this aircraft under false pretenses. Officer Trent raised an eyebrow. "You got proof of all that?" Lena nodded slowly. "I have video, audio, eyewitness testimony, and real-time data logs sent to the FAA and NTSC. Would you like to review it, or shall I contact Agent Ryder directly?" The name dropped like a hammer. Trent blinked, then stepped back. "I think we'll wait for federal marshals to arrive." Monica smirked. "Good call." Warwick turned red. "This is outrageous." "Sit down," Gerald said, standing beside Lena, "and shut up." Passengers were rising now, not out of panic, but solidarity. Phones lifted, voices murmured. "She's telling the truth. I saw him hit her. She warned us about this." That's the police chief. Even Nick, the co-pilot, stepped into the cabin. "She didn't do anything wrong," he said clearly, but he did. Warwick's mouth moved. No sound came out. 10 minutes later, the marshals arrived, real ones. They bypassed Trent and headed straight for Lena. "Chief Cole." She handed them a small drive. "All recordings are on here. Audio, manifest logs, satellite timestamps, the works." The lead marshal, Agent Ellis, reviewed the files quickly, then looked up. "Captain Warwick, you're hereby relieved of duty pending federal investigation. Please come with us." Warwick paled. "You're making a mistake." "No, sir," Ellis replied. "You did." As they led Warwick down the aisle, the passengers clapped, not in celebration, but in relief. The plane had landed, but the truth was still gaining altitude. The concourse at Jackson Municipal Airport buzzed louder than usual. By the time Lena stepped off the aircraft, escorted not by officers but by gratitude, the world outside had already begun spinning. Videos had gone viral. Screens at the gate were lit with headlines. Chief of Police slapped on flight, captain detained. Black woman assaulted at 30,000 feet. She fought back without a word. Microphones flashed. Journalists elbowed each other. Passengers from Flight 384 were given live interviews. Monica stuck close. "You sure you want to walk into that circus?" she asked. "I've walked into worse," Lena replied softly. "Just never while so damn tired." Outside, the sky was gray with a storm rolling in poetic. Perhaps. Lena stepped to the press line with her badge in one hand and her dignity in the other. She didn't yell, didn't cry. She simply spoke. "I am Lena Cole, Chief of Police for Eastbridge. I boarded Flight 384 expecting a routine flight to Atlanta. What I experienced instead was an abuse of authority, racially motivated profiling, and a calculated attempt to discredit not just me but every person who dares to exist with quiet strength." A hush settled. Her voice didn't rise, but it cut deeper than a shout. Later, in the airport's quiet lounge, she sat with Monica, Gerald, and Nick. The adrenaline had faded. In its place, exhaustion. People think when something like this happens, you feel triumphant, Lena said, sipping lukewarm tea, like standing up for yourself is some kind of finish line. Monica looked up. And it's not. Lena shook her head. It's the start of another mountain. Nick, the co-pilot, leaned forward. "I've worked with Warwick for years," he said. "I ignored a lot because I thought speaking up wouldn't matter." Lena met his eyes. "But you spoke today, only because I saw you stand." She didn't answer right away. "Then that's the thing about integrity. Nick, it's contagious. But so is silence." Her phone buzzed. Not a reporter, not the mayor. It was her daughter, Maya. The voicemail was short. "Mom, I saw everything. I love you. You looked like a storm and a lighthouse all at once." Lena smiled for the first time in hours. A real one. Outside the lounge, authorities were preparing statements. Warwick's file would be opened, internal reviews triggered. Monica would testify. Gerald had already submitted the video to the Civil Aviation Oversight Board. Still, Lena wasn't ready to fly again. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. She needed time and silence and maybe a slow road trip back to Eastbridge. Before leaving, she turned to Monica. "You'll be okay." Monica nodded. "They're already looking into a transfer for me. Somewhere I can do the job without flinching. You ever need a reference, I'll just say I flew with the chief once." Monica smiled. That should be enough. They hugged. Then Lena turned to Gerald. "I owe you." "You don't," he said, waving it off. "You handled it. I just clicked record. You clicked truth." He grinned. "Then I guess we're even." She walked toward the exit with her badge tucked away, not hidden, just resting. Today, it had spoken enough. From behind her came murmurs, airport echoes, passengers still talking about that woman on the plane. But to Lena, she wasn't that woman. She was every woman who had ever been told to sit down, and chose instead to stand. 3 days later, Eastbridge was quiet under soft spring rain. The town hadn't changed. Same brick storefronts, same slow traffic, same aroma of oak and rain-washed pavement. But Lena Cole felt the difference in her bones. It wasn't just about what had happened at 30,000 feet. It was about everything that had led to that moment and everything that would follow. Her badge felt heavier now, not from shame, from meaning. She parked just outside the precinct, where a small cluster of officers stood waiting. Some saluted, some simply nodded, and Lena. She gave a small, steady wave, the kind that says, "I'm home, but I'm not done." Inside, her office was untouched. A framed photo of Maya still faced her from the shelf. A sticky note from a week ago still clung to the monitor. "Coffee today. Don't forget." She smiled, sat down, and opened her email. There were over 900 new messages from victims, advocates, news outlets, mayors, parents, pilots, survivors, strangers. One stood out. Subject, I thought you were just another angry passenger. I was. So wrong. It was from a fellow passenger, a woman who'd sat in 18A. She had looked away during the slap. She hadn't spoken up. But now, she wrote, "You gave me a mirror I didn't want. Chief Cole, I didn't speak when I should have. But now I'm donating to your foundation, and next time I will stand." Lena closed her eyes and exhaled, not from tiredness, but from release. Later that day, she visited the local youth center. Maya was waiting inside, arms crossed, eyes proud and sad at the same time. "You really gonna make me cry in public?" Lena teased gently. Maya didn't answer, just hugged her tightly, then whispered, "You didn't flinch. You never flinch." Lena held her, wishing she could freeze that moment, that warmth, that truth. Because Maya was watching, and if Lena had done nothing else in life, she had taught her daughter that dignity doesn't bow. By evening, the mayor called. "Want to make a speech?" he asked. "Not really." Lena replied. He chuckled. "Tough. The city's waiting." She sighed, then smiled. "Fine. But I'm not standing on a podium. I'll speak in the square. Among them, not above them." As the sun dipped behind rooftops, a crowd gathered downtown. Hundreds. Some held signs. Some brought flowers. Some just stood needing to be part of something bigger than silence. Lena stepped up, not on stage, but on the same ground as everyone else. She looked out, not with anger, with fire, and then she spoke. 3 days ago, I was slapped on an airplane for asking to be seen, not for being loud, not for being violent, just for existing visibly, unapologetically. Some say, let it go. Some say, stay quiet. But silence never saved anyone. Dignity doesn't need noise, but it demands truth. And this week, we told the truth together, not just about a slap, but about a system that keeps asking us to shrink. I won't shrink, and neither should you. The square erupted into applause, but it wasn't loud. It was solid, like wind filling sails. Lena stepped down. Maya reached for her hand, and together they walked forward into no one's shadow, under no one's sky, because some skies are claimed only when you dare to fly through the storm. When the dust settled and the plane touched ground, it wasn't just the engines that powered down. It was a system built on intimidation, finally pausing long enough to feel the weight of its own injustice. Lena Cole didn't scream. She didn't fight back with fists. She stood in the storm and let her truth do the work, because sometimes the quietest voices carry the fiercest power. This wasn't just about one slap. It was about every time someone is told they don't belong, every time dignity is mistaken for defiance, every time silence is demanded from those who've already given too much. In Lena, we saw more than a chief of police. We saw a mother, a leader, a woman who knows who she is and refuses to apologize for it. So, as you step away from this story, ask yourself, where have you been silent? And more importantly, where will you stand next time? If this story moved you, even a little, like it, share it, and hit that subscribe button to be part of more true stories where everyday heroes rise and justice finally gets its moment. Because next time it might be your voice the world is waiting to hear. Thanks for flying with us, and we'll see you in the next story.